Sorry to start you off with something so hideously horrific. It's that energy of what you put out in the universe is what you get back. Click the links for Gab, Odyssey, Discord, or Sports Channel Coffee with Your Crypto, as people have recently donated on crypto. You're anonymous, so I don't know how to thank you. This is who we're talking about to set the stage of, we all know these kind of people. People who come into a situation and it almost is at a subconscious level of they see a group and they see how they can start people fighting, and it's like if you call it out to them, sometimes they know they're doing it and they get this kind of shifty smarmy look on their face, like, I'm just trying to help people, I'm just trying to be a do-gooder. Yeah, they never actually do any good though. All right, so Clint Eastwood, Eric Clapton, 50 years ago at some awards ceremony in 1973, entirely different time. And at first I watched this video, and he's at some awards ceremony, and some Marlon Brando got an award. He refused to take it, and he had this Indian girl, or half Indian girl, step up and do her little shtick. And you watch it, and he had a little comeback quip afterwards about the cowboys in the movies being shot and something like that. It was not a great remark, but it wasn't the end of the world either. Keep in mind, it's like 50 years later, and it was an off-the-cuff remark. But I watched it and I thought, kind of a dick thing to do. But what she said was pretty reasonable. But then you start to think about it, and you start to get an alternative perspective, as some other people are pointing out, and as people pointed out at the time, they go, it's kind of weird. Marlon Brando sent this girl up to speak for him, so he knew that she would get booed. So it's like a kind of a weird scenario where, okay, first of all, nothing in Hollywood is as it seems, and it's always going to be malicious. So whenever they're doing something, they're trying to manipulate you. So never
Mm-hmm.
look at anything in Hollywood and think, oh, it's just on the surface level approach. All this has got undercurrents under it, and like Clint Eastwood and this English guy who called it out afterwards, who called out Marlon Brando for doing this afterwards. People were starting to pull this scenario apart because, like, they know that Marlon Brando and this girl are peeing on their legs. Like, they know they're doing a bit. This is a bit. This isn't organic. There's nothing in Hollywood that's organic. Not a single thing. So that's why some of the people in the audience were being a little pissed. It's like, what she said was very reasonable, but and I'm not going to defend Hollywood. It's just a den of scum, hive of scum and villainy. It's cockroaches and ticks and leeches. It's the worst people on earth, and it's been evil for a long time. But everything is in context. In 1973, if you think you can understand the context of 1973 and this guy that I showed you, the Raphael guy, who's not in his 80s anyway, to try to go back to 1973 and go, oh, yeah, we're going to judge 1973 by today's standards. That's insane. You couldn't judge 2010 by today's standards because of the BLM riots of 2020. Things have changed so fast, and they're changing so fast. And obviously, like I keep saying, you might probably want to stock up on white rice and Liberty pellets, because white rice actually lasts a long time. And people go, what do you mean? I've got like 100 pounds of white rice. How much do I need? What if your neighbor's hungry? Like, you want to keep them from doing something dumb? It's like, okay, here's some food for your family. Anyway, everything's in context. And these people think like this Marxist revolution, I almost said 2.0, but it's really like 200.0, is going to come off smoothly, and they're not going to experience some... Never mind, I was going to show his face and say redress of grievance, but that would come across as a threat. And I'm not talking about him specifically, because he's one of millions of people in America and in the West who are doing this kind of stuff, these liar worm tongues, who are going back 50 years ago and picking. They just won't leave things alone. A society can't function like that. There's no way a society can function like that. And like I was thinking earlier, it's not a question of, social media. It's kind of like people are blaming social media. Not exactly. What is to blame more so is that you don't have free speech on social media. Where usually, if you had some idiot like, whatever his name, Smegmanoff or something, he's using this very manipulated scene, is what I'm trying to say, to take down Clint Eastwood a little bit, who I didn't realize Clint Eastwood has a huge movie. He's been doing, someone said he's got a project, like he's had a project every year some finger in some project every year for like the past 50 years or something like that. I just remember him from like the cowboy movies. He made like a half dozen cowboy movies, which you can go back and watch them today. And I mean, everything about those movies is excellent. The sound, you try to watch it on as a big a screen as you can for some immersive, get a stereo speaker and all that. Like, date myself, like, we got 7.1, brother. The sound, the lighting, the sets. Like when you hear the cowboy boots crunch on the dirt, you are there. Like if you've ever been in the West of America, like there are towns that literally look just like that. It's like you can smell the sage, you can taste the dirt. These old cowboy movies that they just nailed them. Even the film work, the cinematography, I mean the blocking, everything, the dialogue, everything about those old movies. Oh, they're not politically correct now. Actually, a lot of them were. The bad guys were the same tribe as the good guys, if I remember right. And there was a lot of mixing back and forth, so it wasn't like they weren't politically correct. The thing is, you're never going to have political correctness. You can't have these guys like Shumanoff, and there's a ton of these guys. You can't have them in a society and expect the society to function, because they will tear down everything, because they never reach a place. They always continue along a path, like they always go to the left. I'm going to keep it 100 with you, and I know I harp on this stuff. It's anti-white, and I mean specifically it's this one group of people who are doing this stuff. And you go, Epstein and Weinstein and Dershowitz and Maria Abramovic and Giselle Maxwell and all these other people, Roman Polanski, who got applauded, and Woody Allen, who married his daughter. Like, there's a lot of these people in Hollywood who you would do better to focus on instead of focusing on the mote in your eye. I don't remember that quote. You know what I'm talking about. There are a lot of, like, you're comparing very disparate things here. Like Clint Eastwood said something a little off in '73 because he knew that this chick and Marlon Brando were pulling the wool over people's eyes. So 50 years later, you're trying to get some dopamine from it. And this guy's a nobody. He's a standard example of a usual suspect who's just trying to get some cred, which leads to funding. Like, all this stuff is money and dopamine. For some of the, like, for the smart ones, it's about money. The dumb ones, it's simply about dopamine. So he's trying to do that, manipulate this scene 50 years later, where he knows that, like, there are not enough people there at the scene who are going to come back to this and say, yeah, hey, I'm 80 years old. I was there in 1973. I can tell you what was really going on. Because it means they have to get on Twitter. It's like he knows he's able to do this. He's able to act like a parasite in a society that works and manipulate this event 50 years later to just act like, I almost said a bad word, act like rust. He's acting like rust on a structure to just slowly erode and tear it down. It's like, yeah, you guys have won. Like these Schmegmanoffs, these they won. They have torn down this structure, and like a wrecking ball, it's like a pendulum. It swings one way, and when it swings back, it's going to be a real bitch. When it swings back, it's going to. A lot of people are going to have a changed set of circumstances. So careful, this YouTube algorithm, this tricksy algorithm. Things are going to be rough, for a while, because of these people who just can't let people get along. I really should have scripted this out so I could stay politically correct. There's a lot of movies about these situations, about these people who they, like back in the day, we would have called them do-gooders. But we all knew they weren't do-gooders. We all knew that they were parasites. They were rust. They were these things that just, like, they can't function on their own. They have to act as parasites. But the thing is, they're also spreading disease. And so back in the day, like, we used to be able to call them out because we didn't have social media. We had, face-to-face communications. So you could call them out for what they were. Nowadays, you got social media, and they're free to say anything they want. But if you come back and you call them out as what they are, you'll get kicked off Twitter. Or you'll get shadow banned, and then eventually you'll get kicked off for simply calling them what they are, the vermin and filth that they actually are. So what happens is it's like you all saw that bridge of the resonance frequencies, where, or like a shock absorber on a spring. You know, this if you don't have the shock absorber on the car, it's like as long as there's energy going in, it's just going to keep to oscillate, but you have the spring to dampen out the shock, or the bridge that, you know, people marched across it and they set up resonance, and it fractured because of it didn't have something to damp it out. So that's what's happening with social media now. So people are using, these far leftists are using the power of social media to set up this positive reinforcement loop. That positive reinforcement means the sine wave just, I guess it's not a sine wave, but, you know, it just keeps increasing until you hit until it destroys itself, which is where we're headed to now, because this is unsustainable. You can't have these, you can't have this kind of person coming into a society and just destroying everything. It's like there's an old meme. It's politically incorrect, and I know sure as hell can't put it on YouTube. It's where you've got someone like him who's putting a black person and a white person together, hands on their back, forcing them together, and says, "Now fight, cattle, fight." That's what this person is doing, and like